just talk about putting Tim in the car and just kind of what went into that. And then we'll get some questions lined up and we'll go to the meeting here in just a second. But just to kind of the thought about how this whole thing started.
Sure. Yeah, I listened to Tim was a little short on some of the fill of the information because there's so much backstory to him and his family and the stuff in the past. So this really had started back in the Gen 6 car when the modifieds had been gone from Martinsville for I don't know 10 years or so, and then the modifieds are going to come back. And I said, man, we need to figure out a way to maybe get you there for that race because he was going to be looking forward to running that race with the modifieds. And I actually talked to Burt Myers as well. This is when we were running a couple full-time cars in Gen 6. And so the idea was to still they did a NASCAR to get them both approved to be at Martinsville, which we did. And then anybody that follows Bowman Gray and those guys knows that we got an inherent storyline immediately, right? So that almost happened for a variety of different reasons. It just didn't. And so, Tim was talking about going to work for Yarborough's back in 1994. And actually, Tim was already working for me kind of part-time with my career. And Ken Glenn, who was a neighbor of mine in Greensboro, was the crew chief for him. And he introduced me to Tim probably in the 92 or 93. And so we've been friends ever since, and just a great guy. And then we got involved with him. Actually, I think it was 2008, which I think is the first year of the Madhouse, and we kind of teamed up with him there and we had the Circle K Thirstbuster car, and he won the championship, and it was just a great scenario. And so we've since worked with him on all kinds of different projects and done some different racing with his backup car at different times with different drivers. And so he's just a fantastic guy and extremely hard worker and just a great race driver. And, in my opinion, race drivers to a certain degree, given the tools, they can compete with a wide variety of people on certain tracks. If we were to take him to a road course, he's probably going to struggle. And maybe even some different size ovals, but he's run modifieds in 3/4 miles and half miles of Bowman Gray. So he's a racer, and it really wasn't much of a stretch. It was just a little bit unique to make your debut at something like the Clash as opposed to someplace like Martinsville. Then we're talking about it.
Yep, gotcha. All right, let's kick it off with some questions here. We'll start with Bob. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rick. Just how long? I mean, was it pretty much a no-brainer for you once they decided the Clash would be there to put him in the car?
Well, so when they started talking about it, immediately, me and Tim started scratching our head, and the thought process was, hey, let's go see the feasibility of it. It was going to depend a lot on whether or not we were running. Was it going to be a third entry as an open, or was it going to be the second car as an open? There's a lot of different scenarios, but we were pretty adamant that we were going to do all that we could do to take them there. It'd been different if it would have been across country because there's a lot more involved, but being that it's local, being that he's a huge following, it just kind of made sense to finalize what we actually started probably 3 or 4 years ago or so, or maybe a little bit. Yeah, probably about that far back to begin with. And, he was talking about, working on the cars, et cetera. And if anybody knows Tim, he's extremely anal. He'll push people out of the way and make sure he's going to touch every piece of that car. So he selfishly has an agenda to touch every piece, make it as good as he feels that he can make it. And that's the way he is with his modified as well. I mean, he's hands-on. So it's cool that he can, work on something that's going to be his car, and he takes a lot of pride in that. And frankly, me and Lisa take some pride in being able to offer that opportunity to Tim because we've known him and his wife and his family for forever. And when me and Robbie started talking about it, I was like, man, we got to figure it out and make it happen.
And what are your plans for that 15 car for this year? And do you have like a timetable to name a driver for the 51?
We're working really hard on that, Bob. Every day we're getting closer and putting pieces together. That's a big 800-pound gorilla that we're piecing together bit by bit. And we'll be making some announcements soon on that. But it has given us the opportunity to do this deal with Tim, and which is what we're just extremely excited about right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Let's go over to Claire B. Lang. Go ahead, Claire.
Thanks for your time. Tim was talking about how he doesn't read social media and that sometimes he'll pass positive comments on social media about him doing this. How much pressure is put on him for Rick Ware Racing, to get her done versus because of his talent versus going there and this being a really good endeavor? Talk about what it means for Rick Ware Racing and what you see that he doesn't see in himself, that he's so shy about looking at what people are saying about him doing this.
Well, again, which I just mentioned about being a race driver, I view him as a race driver first. Now, Bowman Gray is truly unique in that when we went to the Clash, they laid down fresh asphalt, and it was it was amazing. I couldn't believe that the asphalt stayed in good shape and it was smooth, and there was a lot of grip. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they tear it up and relaid it again. The difference with this is that it is extremely porous. It's very wore out. I'm not so sure you're not trying to hook up on pieces of the stone in between the asphalt that's gone away. And so, if you've gone there a fair amount and watched those guys qualify on evenings when it has been, cold, more so than normal, you have to have a lot of patience. It is so easy to overdrive those corners, which it isn't any quarter mile, but especially there. And the exiting is going to be even narrow because you're losing approximately just shy of 3 feet on each side because of the soft wall barriers. But if there's a value to having, literally, a million laps, around a place, there is an advantage. These are the best guys in the world racing these cars. And so they have good cars and they're good drivers. We're putting our best foot forward. I think he's putting a lot of expectations on himself just because that's the kind of person he is, right? He's one of those guys where I'm not going to go somewhere unless I think I can win. And that's a little bit tougher attitude to have at the Cup level because there's a lot of other guys that have the same attitude, just like in the other short track. But we're trying to give him, I think, all that anybody could. I think he's going to do really well. I think if you look at some of the great drivers that haven't even made the main events the last 2 years, it's not so much a function of they are not driving. It's a function of the whole total package just couldn't get that last thousandth of a second. I mean, the field is so tight. What I like about having him there is it was mentioned earlier. Normally half the crowd that's sold out hates and boos for Tim. The other half immediately love him. But I feel like even the people that may hate him at Bowman Gray are happy for him because they respect what he's done. They respect the tenure and the fact that he's a good race driver. And sometimes you hate good race drivers. And so that portion I like. I think it's good for the overall sport. It's so cool that NASCAR has taken over this track, and they're giving it a coat of paint, but it still has the feel. It still has an old school feel. And if people haven't been there, you can't even, it's like the first time going to Bristol. If you haven't been there, it's hard to equate and explain it to somebody. And it's just going to be a win-win for everybody. And I'm just really excited about it.
Do you like that it's unpredictable and hard in an exhibition race? That, what you're defining is that we don't really know what's going to happen, and it's going to be very difficult.
100%. Again, just mentioning some of the people that are outstanding short track racers that didn't make it in the Clash, and some that did, that were a surprise. If we were going to a mile and a half or back at Daytona, I think you could probably pick 10 cars that you would expect to be qualified up front, right? And then teams would team up, and but here, I mean, if you happen to get some forward bite and get the car turned and not overdrive the corner, I think you're going to have some really great championship drivers that they may just overdrive the corner because they had to go out early or it was just colder than they thought. So yes, I think from start to finish, from practice all the way to the checkered flag, I think the whole world's going to be watching, and literally around the world, because there's no other racing going on at that time of the year.
Thanks, Rick, and good luck. Okay.
Claire, thank you very much.
You got it.
All right, let's move over to Kelly Crandall. Hello, Kelly, go ahead.
Hello again, Dan. Hey, Rick.
Hey, Kelly.
I owe you a text message, by the way. That's coming. Aside from performance, you and Tim have both talked very positively about hopefully how he can run at Bowman Gray. What else are you hoping that he'll get from this experience, being able to run this race?
Well, racers are inherently always looking forward. So, there's talk of, well, what if we could put together something and maybe run the second Martinsville later on in the year? And that's what racers do, right? We're addicts and we're trying to find a way to go do something cool. I think there's a lot of opportunity potentially for that. Is this a scenario that we can build a base of local support and he does this for the next 10 years if it's there? I'm not sure, but what I want him to get out of it is obviously as a former driver that didn't make it, obviously, and as team owner now, I understand what it's like to go do something that you've dreamed about doing. And, running a cup car for anybody that's grown up around here, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's the holy grail of motorsports. And I'm just glad to be able to be part of being able to give that to him. And the fact that he has his sons there, I brought my kids there at a young age when he was, still racing and winning championships. And for him to be able to have his son there, his family, and for him to be able to be at a place that's kind of his house. I hope he can just absorb it. I hope the weather is fantastic and the place is off the hook, and it may lead to a whole lot more things, and that's definitely a possibility. But for sure, I want him just to absorb it and enjoy it, because as racers, I mean, we're here today, and before we got on this call, we're talking about 2 weeks later at Daytona, and then we got to go straight to him. I mean, you're just always going, you're burning through the moments and the memories. And so I just hope he can just absorb it. And I hope he just has a fantastic run.
We've heard about the reception and how well this has played on social and how cool a lot of people think this is for Tim. For you, Rick, what has it meant for you to be involved in being able to give him this opportunity, and as well see also such positive reception for you and your program being able to do this?
Well, I think it, from a marketing standpoint, it worked out really well. And sometimes that's part of what you have to do as a business and a race team. But I can promise you, it started with doing something really cool for a really good friend. The byproduct is that it has garnered a whole lot of attention, and the reason being is because he's that outstanding of an individual. And so I'm thankful that we could be able to do it. Lisa's been around, and Lisa was excited about doing it. And there have been many nights that we've been there late with our boys, with him, and he's been instrumental with helping my family through the development and driver approval process and throughout the years. And so we are like a family, and we see each other on a regular basis, and but we work really hard. So it's one of those things that it's hard to have win-wins, especially where we are in the Cup Series, trying to claw up both performance-wise and stature and acceptability. We've worked really, really hard, and Robbie and Tommy Baldwin have really been a part of that. And of course, you have Tommy, who's knee deep in modifieds as well. So that there's over here at RWR, it's kind of the modifieds against the world, but it's just cool. I mean, I'm very thankful, and part of how it's grown too is that Tim mentioned earlier, got to give a hand out to Mike Arning at True Speed, because he's helped kind of educate the whole country about what's happening, and I think it's going to be good. Good for the sport, good for television, and good for the Cup Series.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's move on over to Dustin Long. Go ahead, Dustin.
Thanks. Hey, Rick, as you referenced, you're part of a unique fraternity with those who have competed in one cup race and giving the opportunity to Tim. And it was interesting when you talked about hoping he doesn't burn through the experiences or the memories. And I'm just curious, what are the special memories and what does it mean for you to have gotten that one cup start? Obviously, I know as a racer you wanted a lot more, but to be able to say, hey, you did have that one cup start in 1990 at Watkins Glen, you were out on the track and did those things. What are the things that you experienced and that still stick with you 35 years later?
Well, for me, using that particular race as an example, um, I won't say that I raced against the greatest names in racing, but I got to compete with the greatest names in racing. So, that was, that's part of the people that you look up to and what it took to even make that happen. It was, it was insurmountable, especially at that time and where I was, and to be able to do that. And even that was a bizarre scenario because I subbed for Rick Mass, who was running a race, I think, at in either Orange County or South Boston. There was a conflict, and it really wasn't a road course racer, and I had road course experience. So we filled in for Bobby Jones in the 22 car that Rick Mass normally drives. So it was a bizarre set of circumstance, but it was like I was on cloud nine. I was on cloud nine, and so but it comes and goes, and all you think about is trying to get to that next scenario, and so I'm me and Lisa like the fact that I want to say in a 10-year period, I'm pretty confident statistic wise we've probably given more drivers their first cup start than I'm going to say probably the top 10 teams combined, and maybe those stats are a little off, but it's pretty significant, and part of that is just the opportunity. And I'm a racer, and there's a soft spot there, and I do see things through the eyes of people when you had good weekends, bad weekends, and this got announced so relatively early in that I'm happy that he's been able to. It's been a month and a half or 2-month process for him, as opposed to, hey, somebody got hurt, you fit in the seat, you want to drive, and you have 24 hours. He's being able to really absorb it, and that's important to me, just as a friend and seeing things and being a family and racing. That's important to me and Lisa, and to be able to do those things.
So, and like you talk about, this is a different situation where there's a lot more time. What is it like to see this experience through his eyes? As somebody who had that shorter window to see this, how are you experiencing it, or how are you, in a way, experiencing your first cup start all over again?
Well, for him, I think he had a probably a little bit longer ramp up for it, and it's cool just being at the shop because as he mentioned, we have Tim Brown, and we have a young guy named Andre that's running at Bowman Gray in I think a mini stock car, and Chad Blount's run Xfinity cars, and Billy Plord's run late models up north, and we have a lot of racers here, and so it's great because there's a lot of ribbing and joking around, and everybody's expecting they're expecting him to sit on the first couple rows, because if he's not in the first couple rows every Saturday night, he's pissed off and throwing something, right? So, it's good to kind of just kind of see how the interaction is, in your workplace, and just kind of to have the support. And he's actually been able to share it with a whole group of people that normally you wouldn't be able to, because these are his peers, and there's a lot of camaraderie, and there's just a whole lot of respect. So it's really cool from that standpoint.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
All right, Dustin, thanks. We'll close it out here with Claire B. Going back. Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, a real quick follow-up. Do you have any sense of you guys putting a lot into this, and that some of the teams at Bowman Gray, I mean, everybody loves it's going there, that, it's not in LA, this is a great, great race, but that you might be putting more into it, and we may see surprising things out of Rick Ware Racing? And I don't mean surprising that you wouldn't have gotten it done, but that you are really putting a lot into this particular race. And that's kind of exciting. But is that, you think others maybe aren't quite as much, or maybe looking sideways at Daytona?
I think because it's the first race of the year and there's a fair amount of time, and it's almost a little bit, the race is kind of a get out of jail free card, in that if you piss people off in points races, somebody may be putting you on a list. I saw, at the Clash last year, of course, if you're standing down, in the middle of the track. I mean, you can just see the car. It's just like being a Bowman Gray or a short track. You can't stand in the middle of the Bowman, but you can really see what goes on. And there's a lot of roughing up because you don't have any choice. I mean, you have to move somebody pretty much to get by, and that's the way it is at Bowman Gray on a regular basis. So I think a lot of people put a lot of effort into it because first off, they're racers. They want to win. I don't know what it pays to win, but it's decent, but it's a cool trophy. It's the Clash. It's the first race of the year. It's the inaugural event. And for people liking to put those on their trophy case, it's really cool. Are we putting more than normal? I wouldn't say we are, but we're trying to go to every track right now, as prepared as we can. But going back to Tim Brown personally, he's the kind of guy that will triple check something just because of his OCDs of wanting it to be perfect. So he's going to prepare it like it's $1 million to win modified race, that if he doesn't win, he's expected to. So, but it's one of those races where, a lot of different people can win. So we are preparing for it from that standpoint.
Appreciate it. Good talking to you today.
Claire, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.